I'm calling to order this hearing, public hearing of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I'm Phil Mendelson, Chairman of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. The time is 11:17 in the morning. This is a hearing of the committee on 6 nominations that the mayor submitted for appointment to the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. This hearing is being recorded, so it will be available on the council's website, www.dccouncil.gov. It's also being broadcast live via the Zoom video conference broadcast platform. It's being broadcast live on the chairman's website, which is www.chairmanmendelson.com/live. As I said, these are appointments to the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. The Coordinating Committee is a public body composed of non-government residents and agency representatives to support planning, policymaking, program development, and budgeting for successful educational experiences and outcomes for students in the care of DC. Students in the care of DC are district residents under 25 years of age who are incarcerated or detained by, committed to or under the custody of, or otherwise under the supervision of, the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, or DYRS, the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency, otherwise known as CSOSA, the Pretrial Services Agency for the District of Columbia, the Family Court Social Services Division, the Child and Family Services Agency, or CFSA, the Department of Corrections, or the Federal Bureau of Prisons. The coordinating committee is to provide leadership in the development of strategies and policies that guide the implementation of the district's policies and programs to improve educational outcomes for students in the care of DC. The coordinating committee has up to 26 voting members and 4 non-voting members who represent key community stakeholder constituencies or are district agency administrative heads or their designees. The mayor submitted 6 nominations on September 16th. This hearing is actually on 5 of those 6 because one of the nominations has been withdrawn from the council. The mayor withdrew. The 5 nominations are PR 24-933 to appoint David Domenici, PR 24-934 to appoint Dr. Felicia Hayward, PR 24-935 to appoint Keisha Fitzhugh, PR 24-937 to appoint Lashunda Hill, and PR 24-938 to appoint Claire Blumenson. The mayor submitted these nominations for the council's action for confirmation. If the council takes no action, they'll be deemed approved on November 19th, 2022. The record in this matter will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, November 14th. That's roughly 2 weeks from now. It will close on Monday, November 14th at 5 p.m. because my intent, unless there's some problems that are identified, is to put these nominations before the council for active consideration at its meeting on November 15th. So anyone who wishes to comment or supplement their testimony has until close of business on November 15th. That is 5 p.m. We issued a hearing notice more than 2 weeks ago, approximately 3 weeks ago, and the only witnesses we have are the nominees. So we're going to let them all in so that they can give statements, and I'll ask a few questions. David Domenici, Dr. Felicia Hayward, Keisha Fitzhugh, Lashunda Hill, and Claire Blumenson. You'd all join us. think I was waiting for something to happen, and I think that something is me. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I think everyone's here. So why don't we begin with you, Mr. Domenici? Actually, let me first say thank you all for your willingness to serve. And I hope this doesn't come across as being intimidating, because it's not meant to be that way at all. The goal here really is to have some discussion about this coordinating committee, and also to give the public an opportunity to weigh in. And if we don't hear from many members of the public, that suggests that folks are okay with each of you, which is a good thing. So, Mr. Domenici, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Good morning, Chairman Mendelson and members of the Committee of the Whole. My name is David Domenici. I'm honored to appear before you today as a nominee of the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. I want to thank Mayor Bowser for nominating me for this appointment and the council for taking the time to consider my nomination. In the next couple of minutes, I just want to provide the council with a brief overview of my background and experience working in this space and answer any questions that you may have. I've lived in Washington, D.C. since 1992. I practiced law briefly here in the city, but have spent most of my adult life working in education with a focus on system-involved and at-risk teens. In 1997, I co-founded the C Forever Foundation and the Maya Angelou Public Charter Schools, where I worked full-time until 2011. While at Maya Angelou, I served as the executive director and principal for many years. In 2007, Maya Angelou was selected to open up a school at Oak Hill, which was the name of DC's secure juvenile facility at the time. From 2007 until 2011, I worked there full-time as the principal. And at what was then Maya Angelou Academy at Oak Hill, which is now called New Beginnings. In 2011, I left the staff of Maya Angelou to launch what I'll call a sister nonprofit, Break Free Education, with the goal of supporting educational reform in juvenile justice facilities across the country. I currently work at Break Free Education. I serve as a volunteer on the board of the C Forever Foundation and the Maya Angelou Public Charter School. My work at C Forever Foundation and Maya Angelou and at Break Free provides me with a solid understanding of the issues that the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee is charged with addressing. We founded Maya Angelou many years ago in order to fill a need in the city for high quality alternative high school for court involved and other students who are not being well served by the district. At Break for Education, we similarly focus on working with juvenile justice agencies and their education partners with the goal of improving education for students held in confinement across the country. I'm excited to serve as a member of the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. I believe both my strong, longstanding work here in the district and my work around the country will enable me to support the work of the committee and will allow me to be able to work effectively and collaboratively with a broad range of stakeholders. Thank you for your consideration today. I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Domenici. Dr. Hayward?
Good morning, Chairman
Good morning.
Mendelson and members of the Committee of the Whole. My name is Dr. Felicia Hayward, and I'm honored to come before you today to discuss my nomination to the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. Thank you to Mayor Muriel Bowser for nominating me to the committee and the council for providing me the opportunity to discuss my qualifications. I currently serve as Deputy Chief of Secure Programs for the C Forever Foundation Maya Angelou Public Charter Schools. In my role, I oversee the educational programs at New Beginnings, the Youth Services Center, and the charter school currently operating at the DC jail that is providing special education services to the students under the custody of the Department of Corrections. Before taking on my current leadership role, I served as the principal of the education program at New Beginnings. During my time as principal, I saw firsthand what was needed in order to ensure that incarcerated students committed to DYRS had the best education possible in a supportive environment. From this experience, I also know firsthand what teachers and school staff need in order to be fulfilled by their work and to be most successful within a secure facility and when working with students who are incarcerated. In addition to my experience providing education to students who are incarcerated, I also bring special education expertise. I started my career as a special education teacher in a level 5 special education school in DC. I worked as a classroom teacher for almost 7 years before moving into administration. During my career, I completed my MAT at Trinity University in DC, completed my Master's of Education and Doctorate of Education at Bowie State University. Each of my post-undergraduate degrees has been in special education, school leadership, and leading culturally and linguistically diverse students. The focus of my doctoral dissertation was special education teacher recruitment and retention in juvenile correctional settings. I received several awards over the years for my work and dedication to addressing the unique needs of student populations who are often furthest from educational opportunity. Many justice system and child welfare system involved students also receive special education services. Therefore, my expertise in special education will add value to the committee as we work together to strengthen the educational services and supports for students in the district care. I've dedicated my life to working with marginalized communities and opportunity youth. This committee will allow me to continue to work in a meaningful way as I represent Maya Angelou Public Charter Schools. I'm passionate about the students in the care of DC, both those who are or have experienced justice system involved and those who have been involved in the child welfare system. I'm excited to work to strengthen the education that they receive and to increase their access to workforce development opportunities. My educational background will be valuable because I'm a researcher and I'm highly educated about not only correctional education, but also special education and opportunity youth. My work background will be valuable because I've worked as a classroom teacher, a school leader, department head, and district level administrator, all with opportunity youth, and most recently with students experiencing incarceration. My personal background will be valuable because I see that the majority of these students are Black and brown, men, women, boys, and girls. When I look at them, I see myself, I see my family members, I see my friends. Any of us could have been where these students are now, which makes me passionate about providing the best care for them that we can. I'm a highly qualified nominee for this position because of my passion, dedication, and hardworking nature. I'm also a good listener, a proven leader, and someone who demonstrates empathy, emotional agility, and intelligence, and I'm willing to work as hard as I can for this population and this committee. I can use my resources from my current work and from the work I've done in the past. I have access to many spaces that others do not, and I can see firsthand what is happening, what is needed, and how we can start to solve the problems instead of just commenting on them. My vision for the committee is that the committee brings together individuals and groups of people from different professional settings, personal passions, and educational backgrounds to solve problems that students in the care of DC are experiencing or have experienced. This committee has one singular goal: to improve the educational and personal lives of these students. Even before the formal launch of the SCDC Coordinating Committee, the Office for Students in the Care of DC convened governmental and non-governmental stakeholders during the pandemic to address COVID-19 specific challenges. These meetings were helpful and informative. I look forward to continuing that collaboration as the SCDC Coordinating Committee launches. I'm excited to be a part of the Coordinating Committee's larger group meetings with all the other coordinating committee members, as well as smaller subgroup meetings for specific areas. Thank you again, Chairman Mendelson, for holding this hearing, and to Mayor Bowser for nominating me for this appointment. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Hayward. Next is Keisha Fitzu.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson, members of the committee, and staff. My name is Keisha Fitzhugh. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today, and thank you to Mayor Muriel Bowser for nominating me for this appointment to the Students in Care of DC Coordinating Committee. I'm humbly grateful for this opportunity to share my testimony. When I received the call for the interview for this nomination, I was moved to tears, recalling a moment of helplessness when my son was in the 3rd grade, and I first realized that he was not at reading level. For all the phone calls relevant to misbehaving, suspensions, and detentions, there was not one phone call, letter, or conference about his academics. My baby was just being passed through. I advocated for my child in that situation. I can only imagine what it's like for students in the same kind of situations who don't have anyone to advocate on their behalf. I decided to apply to become a member of the Students in Care of DC Coordinating Committee because I thought, wow, God has finally made room for my passion and my own personal experiences to service the youth of DC. who need someone to advocate for them the most. As a teen mother who raised 2 Black boys and my little sister in the heart of historically under-resourced Ward 8, I feel a collective obligation to the children of our city. Having experienced firsthand what it means to have a child in the care of DC with my now 21-year-old son, being here in this moment is surreal for someone like me. Someone who grew up with parents with substance abuse issues, someone who was a teen mother and had to choose parenthood over going away to college with a full ride. Someone who, despite some painful and traumatizing experiences, both in childhood and because of where I could afford to live and raise my family, is present, aware, and willing to fight for and with every child I possibly can, given the adversity that I face myself. Despite the hardships that I've experienced in life and the challenges that my children have also faced, I persevered. And my perseverance has paid off for both me and my family. I now hold 2 degrees from Columbia Southern University, a Bachelor of Business Administration, cum laude, which led me to being chosen for the nation's largest leadership honor society, the National Society of Leadership and Success. I also have an MBA with a concentration in public administration. As I've worked my way through the administrative ranks over the years, from the private to the nonprofit sector, landing as the first Black Associate Director of Business and Finance of the Leadership Conference of Women Religious since its inception, I stand proudly in my accomplishments. Professionally, I understand how to manage big projects and develop organizational process. These skills will make me an effective committee member who can not only contribute ideas, but can also make sure those ideas are implemented into actionable plans. In addition to my academic and professional accomplishments, I also bring to the committee my own experiences as a parent of a child who formerly was committed to DYRS. In 2016, my son was committed to the agency for juvenile life following an unfortunate situation in the community. Prior to that situation, I had some strong biases towards parents and guardians whose children were placed in the care of an agency like that, until I became one. I was humbled quickly throughout the Anchored in Strength parent and guardian caregiver group process. I was empowered to learn the legal system as it pertained to my child and his situation. I had to be his voice in the community and at home, on the phone and in writing. The unwavering support I displayed came from the same place of tenacity that I faced when I had adversity as a child and then young adult. I remember the disadvantages that he faced when I wasn't as present or invested in his care, because I blindly trusted those in positions of influence, power, and teaching to be accountable without question. I refused to allow him to suffer at the hands of my inability to not accept where we were in our journey. I knew I had to be an active participant in advocacy areas where I was distrusting, afraid of the unknown, and feeling judged. There's a certain level of tenacity that is needed when interacting and advocating on the behalf of children, which I have displayed with assertive and informed grace. During my time working with DYRS as a parent advocate, I have been recognized as a parent leader because of how I show up for the parents whose children are in the care of DC and court involved. I share my story with conviction, not condemnation. I speak and share from a place of fact, to be used as an accountability and encouragement tool, and a self-awareness that conveys my commitment to our youth. I have volunteered to assist in making connections through my own networking efforts and assist in writing advocacy letters on behalf of parents and children whose needs aren't being met. I am tapped for speaking groups, sessions. I have been approached for a keynote speaking role, and I assist with outreach and in the family engagement sector as well. The gratitude that I feel from parents as we move the needle forward is what motivates me to remain engaged. My work helps parents and families reclaim the confidence and internal peace that is often rattled in crisis. And I am so fulfilled by seeing my work that I have done ultimately have a positive impact on the children in the care of DC. If confirmed, I would like to spearhead speaking engagements and connection sessions with parents, guardians, children in the care of the agencies. Too often, I feel that those who are being cared for, their voices are being silenced regarding the efficacy of the programs and the service offerings, and that needs to change. As a creator of organizational process, I believe that I could be instrumental to devising a plan that holds those who oversee and care accountable to those that they serve. Moreover, storytelling is a powerful tool when trying to convey such significant points. My relatability, passion for recreating the narrative, and commitment to being an agent of change is a recipe for everlasting impact. I love and deeply understand DC families and youth because I am a proud Washingtonian who has lived experience and a passion for serving my city. If confirmed to serve on the committee, I will bring that love, understanding, and passion to everything that I contribute. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today, and I welcome any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzhugh. LaShonda Hill.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Mendelson and council members. Thank you to Mayor Muriel Bowser for nominating me to serve as Director of the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. And thank you to Deputy Mayor Paul Kine for his continued support of SCDC's work within the DME. My name is LaShonda Hill, and I am humbled to be testifying before you today. I come to this work with a personal passion for and a professional dedication to ensuring that every child, regardless of their past mistakes, trauma, and system involvement, receive everything that they need to feel loved, experience joy, be supported, and have access to opportunity. I begin my testimony today with a story. Early in my career, I worked for an organization providing in-home services to youth and families who touched the child welfare and justice systems in Tennessee. On my caseload was a young man who we will call Chris. That isn't his real name, but we'll call him Chris. One day, unexpectedly, I got a call from Chris's school. He had been expelled from school after misbehaving in class. The expulsion resulted in a violation of the conditions of his probation. Sadly, even though his offense was minor, the probation violation would mean that he would be detained. Despite Chris's tough exterior, he was not a threat. That day, the same 16-year-old boy who swore that he never cried broke down into tears as I had to explain to him that he would be locked up again. I tried my best to get all the key players together to discuss his multitude of issues and to convince them that treatment and not incarceration was what was needed. I knew that his troubles were linked to trauma. I also knew that with additional support, Chris could and would improve. However, in order to see him succeed, all the systems that touched his life needed to work together to ensure his success. In Chris's case, because we were not able to effectively communicate and collaborate, the school, juvenile court, and other child-serving agencies had incomplete pictures of him. So instead of receiving services, he would again be institutionalized. Chris's case is an example of why I have committed my career to serving youth who touch systems, youth who are far too often pushed to the margins and not seen for their promise and potential. I do this work because I'm committed to strengthening educational and workforce development systems and supports to help ensure that kids like Chris, who are here in DC, are given what they need in order to succeed. If confirmed to serve as the director of the SCDC Coordinating Committee, I will work hard to ensure that the Coordinating Committee has everything it needs to be able to collaboratively address the unique challenges faced by students in district care. I will not rest until every student in the care of DC has everything they need to not simply just survive, but to thrive. Over the past decade, I've advocated for and with youth and their families at the local, state, and national levels. My work has spanned direct youth service, policy, advocacy campaigning, and program development. Currently, I serve as the inaugural executive director for the Office for Students in the Care of the District of Columbia within the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Education's office. Since taking on this leadership role in 2020, I've had the opportunity to work strategically and collaboratively across district government and communities to strengthen education and workforce development services and supports for DC youth and young adults who come into contact with the child welfare and justice systems. Before leading the SCDC office, I served in various roles at organizations like the Pew Charitable Trust and the Council of State Governments Justice Center, where I conceptualize and manage technical assistance to states and localities seeking to improve outcomes for youth who come into contact with the juvenile justice system. My work included the conducting of in-depth analysis and assessments of relevant administrative and legislative policies, programs, and practices, the conducting of on-site assessments of state and local policy and practice, the identification of opportunities and challenges for system improvement, and the development of recommendations for changes to policy. I also served as a state strategist for the Campaign for the Fair Sentencing of Youth, where I led advocacy to abolish the sentence of juvenile life without parole and other extreme sentences across the country. At CFSY, I work with state legislatures and local child advocates in drafting legislative language, action alerts, talking points, conducting advocacy trainings, and composing legislative testimony for hearings, just like this. I built state coalitions and conducted education and outreach to unlikely allies, litigators, faith leaders, and directly impacted people in order to advance reforms. In forming my macro level policy work, I also have knowledge of how to effectively design and administer programmatic interventions targeting children and families who are navigating risk. As a family intervention specialist with Youth Villages, I provided in-home intervention services for system-involved youth transitioning out of residential placements. I also co-founded and served as assistant director of the Many Faces of Diversity program at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, which provided college preparatory programming for young people of color in Hamilton County's Tennessee school system. My academic credentials include graduating with 3 bachelor's degrees with highest honors from the University of Tennessee, where I completed a departmental honors thesis on the juvenile superpredator myth and its impact on juvenile waiver practices across the country. As a public policy and international affairs fellow at Princeton University, I also completed a group consulting project with the New Jersey's Attorney General's office entitled Waiving Hope, an analysis of juvenile waiver process in New Jersey. In recognition of my commitment to public service and my social justice leadership, in 2009, I was chosen as a Harry S. Truman Scholar. I also hold a master's in education with a concentration in adolescent prevention science and practice from Harvard's Graduate School of Education. While at Harvard, I provided GED and job preparatory programming to young women enrolled in the Quincy Teen Mothers Program and designed a peer mediation program for a small alternative middle school in Boston that included the development of curriculum and the training of student mediators, teachers, staff, and the education of the entire student body. I also completed a consulting project for the Massachusetts Department of Education, outlining state strategies to provide district-level incentives for developing dropout recovery services. While working full-time, I also received my law degree from Georgetown. At Georgetown, I served as a research assistant for the Georgetown Juvenile Justice Initiative, was awarded the Ryan Child Advocacy Fellowship, the Jones Day Pro Bono Award, and the Women's Committee Bourne Bar Association Scholarship. During law school, I served as a summer law clerk with the Juvenile Division of the Office of the Maryland Public Defender in Baltimore, and as a legal intern in the Family Court Division of the Superior Court of DC. In recognition of my long-term dedication to youth justice and child advocacy work, I was awarded the 2018 Gutsy Youth Advocate Award from NJJN, which is given annually to an individual who advocates for youth and racial justice and exemplifies tenacity, vision, fearlessness, and wisdom. In addition, in recognition of my leadership and dedication to Black children and families, I was selected in 2001 as a National Black Child Development Institute Policy Fellow. If confirmed as director of the SCDC Coordinating Committee, I will bring my content area expertise, my passion, and my ability to collaborate and problem solve with diverse stakeholders. I will bring my vision for what the SCDC Coordinating Committee can accomplish together. I look forward to creating a firm foundation upon which the SCDC Coordinating Committee can operate effectively, leveraging learning from data, research, best practice, and deep and meaningful student, family, and community engagement. My vision as director of the SCDC Coordinating Committee is to see it flourish as a shining example of the positive change we can see when government, students, families, and community leaders come together in the spirit of collaboration. The issues facing students in district care are complex and oftentimes multi-layered. If confirmed as director of the SCDC Coordinating Committee, I look forward to supporting an all of government and all of community approach to addressing those needs and providing much needed resources to students in the care of DC. I deeply believe in the mission of the SCDC Coordinating Committee. I deeply believe that by working together, we can and will create a world where every student who comes into contact with the child welfare, juvenile justice, and criminal justice system here in the district receives high quality educational and workforce development services and supports that addresses their needs, builds on their strengths, and empowers them to succeed. Again, I am so grateful to the mayor for this nomination and for council's consideration today. I'll gladly respond to any questions that you may have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Then we have Claire Blumenson.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson and members of the committee. My name is Claire Blumenson, and I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of School Justice Project, a DC-based nonprofit that provides special education legal services to older court-involved students with disabilities, both during incarceration and throughout reentry. So first, I'd like to thank the committee for holding this hearing and Mayor Muriel Bowser for nominating me to this position. I fully believe consideration for this position is a privilege, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'll start by stepping back to provide some of my academic and professional background that is relevant to the students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. So academic background. I received my Bachelor of Arts from Wesleyan University, majoring in government, sociology, and psychology. After graduating, I earned my master's in teaching from Pace University. In 2011, I completed my Juris Doctor at the University of Virginia School of Law. I'm licensed to practice law in Massachusetts and the District of Columbia. In terms of professional background, before going to law school, I taught 3rd and 4th grade in New York. I loved teaching and I loved my students, but I also saw the damaging effects of zero tolerance policies across the country. I went to law school specifically to focus on the intersection of special education and the legal systems. After graduating from law school in 2011, I had an Equal Justice Works Fellowship at the DC Public Defender Service, PDS, working as a special education attorney for students ages 18 to 22 who were committed to DYRS and placed in DC's secure juvenile facility, New Beginnings. I saw the pervasive education issues facing court-involved students with disabilities. In 2013, my co-founder Sarah Como and I secured seed funding through the Echoing Green Black Male Achievement Fellowship to turn this work into a nonprofit organization, School Justice Project. Finally, in addition to my work at SJP, I also served as an adjunct professor at George Washington Law School from 2016 to 2020, where I taught juvenile justice seminar. In terms of relevant awards or recognition for my work in this field, again, I received a 2011 Equal Justice Works Fellowship, a 2013 Echoing Green Open Society Foundation's Black Male Achievement Fellowship, a 2015 Leadership for Educational Equity Innovation Fellowship, and was named a 2016 Aspen Ideas Scholar. In 2020, I received the Shaping Justice Rising Star Award for work in public service from the University of Virginia Law School. My career path, both in terms of education and professional experience, has been singularly focused on the intersection between education and the court systems. I believe that my experience makes me very well positioned to serve on the committee. My passion and commitment are what led me to co-found School Justice Project, which again is a legal services organization specifically focused on ensuring that court-involved students with disabilities have access to a quality education. At SJP, our work directly furthers the same mission driving the committee. SJP works at the convergence of special education and court systems, both the juvenile and criminal legal systems. SJP uses 3 core strategies to increase access to education for older, court-involved students with disabilities in the district. So these 3 are 1, direct representation, 2, systemic advocacy and policy, and 3, community outreach and legal training. We represent young people as special education attorneys, both while they're in secure facilities and when they come home. We work with them to make sure that they have access to education regardless of court involvement. We also learn from them what the most pressing and intractable education issues are, and we translate these learnings into our systemic advocacy priorities. Finally, we train court stakeholders on how to integrate special education law into the juvenile and criminal practice. We see this work as building racial justice by both increasing educational equity and reducing the use of incarceration. My career has been dedicated to focusing on these issues that comprise the mission of the committee, and I'm confident that my passion and experience will add value to the vital work this committee is doing. I've worked with hundreds of students fighting to navigate both the education and legal systems in DC, and I have the background and knowledge to execute on the critical tasks that this committee will focus on. My experience in the classroom prior to becoming a special education attorney is also highly beneficial to my perspective. I come to this work with the belief that it takes a variety of stakeholders, all in different positions, to be able to make critical change happen. In this final section of my testimony, I'd like to talk about what I see moving forward. So I believe, and I have believed since SJP's inception, that a cross-sector committee specifically focused on ensuring that court-involved students receive a quality education is a critical component of educational equity and racial justice. This committee will play an important and otherwise unfilled role of bringing the many and varied stakeholders to the table to address significant barriers facing court-involved students in our city. My work at SJP is highly relevant to the work that SCDC will be undertaking. Back in 2018, I was extremely involved in advocating to set up a cross-sector working group, one that actually came out of the Council Roundtable on Education for Court-Involved Students. Once this working group was set up, I was an active participant, both during the working group and after, to ensure that the recommendations outlined in that report were realized. One of those recommendations was to set up the SCDC Coordinating Committee, and I'm grateful to be here working towards that today. There is definitely a lot of work that needs to be done, and I hope to bring the many opinions and suggestions of our clients to the table in my role. I believe student voices are critical to the success of sustainable and meaningful change. My vision for this committee is that it will be a space that will proactively tackle the key intractable education issues that court-involved students face. So many of these barriers have to do with interagency gaps and multifaceted problems. Operating in silos has been highly ineffective, and we've seen the damage that this has done to students in the care of DC. Some key issues include access to education inside facilities, access to special education legal services, access to school records, and the ability to earn and transfer academic credit while incarcerated and during reentry. For example, court-involved students often do not receive the academic credit for the work that they complete. Many times they're placed in courses they've already taken. Other times they're placed in courses that do not count for DC graduation. Once they return home, they find that the hard work they've done while in juvenile facilities simply just doesn't count to graduation. Similarly, when students transition from facility to facility or back home, often their school records do not transfer with them, or the new agencies charged with their care can't access those records. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to make proper academic progress or receive appropriate special education services with missing or inaccessible school records. These issues are systemic and they're solvable. This committee is a key step in addressing these pervasive barriers to education. Of course, having been a special education attorney for the last decade, I also recognize that sometimes we will be in adversarial positions. I also believe that that can be necessary in order to hold systems accountable. To me, all these things can coexist, and I think that that's the beauty of cross-sector collaborative work. I hope that this perspective will be valuable to the committee, and I believe my strengths will move the committee forward to achieve its important mission. We need all the players at the table, and this can be a place where that happens. I believe the committee needs transparency and accountability, and I think that the framework for this as a government-sanctioned group has been properly set up. I believe this committee can build educational and racial equity in the city, and I'm honored to be considered for this appointment. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Blumenson. Thank you, each of you. I have to say that I'm impressed with all of your credentials and want to thank you for your willingness to serve. I have a few questions. I think I'm going to start with a question for Ms. Hill. You're currently serving as the executive director of the Office for Students in the Care of the District of Columbia, the SCDC office.
Yes,
And you're being nominated to be the director of the SCDC Coordinating Committee. So do you step down then as the executive director, or do you hold both positions?
if confirmed, I would hold both positions. The director of the SCDC Coordinating Committee is one of the non-voting members of the Coordinating Committee.
Okay. I don't know that I'm troubled anyway. I just wanted to understand that better. And how long have you been the executive director?
I joined as the inaugural executive director in January of 2020. So about 3 years in a month or so, a couple months or so.
I have to count on my fingers. Yes, that's true. And the law that set that up also set up the committee.
Yes, sir.
You know why it's taken so long to get these nominations? Because this is I believe you are all the first to be appointed.
These are the first round of nominations. I will say that two things. One is that when I joined in January of 2020, I was not anticipating that a few months later, we would be entering into a global pandemic. And so much of the work of the Office for Students in the Care of DC was focused on the immediate and urgent response that was necessary during COVID-19. As a couple of the nominees here today participated and mentioned in their testimony, what we did pending the standing up of the formal coordinating committee that we're here to talk about today, we did assemble a COVID-19 working group that throughout the pandemic met, strategized, collaborated, identified issues and challenges together and address them together as a way to respond to COVID-19. So that's the first thing, is I think that focus on that most urgent and immediate need for response was the focus of our work. And then secondly, I think that as demonstrated today, that we invested, along with our colleagues and friends at MODA, a lot of time in identifying the right set of nominees to bring before you today. The work that the SCDC Coordinating Committee has ahead of it and is charged to do is hard. It's complex. It requires a level of expertise in addition to passion, right? In order to really be able to work together and to be able to problem solve and develop better systems, policies, and practices. And so we invested time in doing strategic outreach to organizations, community-based leaders, parents, families, to try to identify who are the right set of nominees to bring forward to you today. And so I think that work has paid off, as indicated by the amazing set of nominees and their testimony and their credentials that they shared today. But now I am excited and very eager to launch the work of the coordinating committee as we enter into the end of the year and the beginning of 2023.
If I remember correctly, there are to be 8 appointees who are confirmed by the council. So we're missing 3. Any sense when that will happen?
Yes, so our hope, we're continuing to do some additional recruitment. Specifically, we are currently working to identify and interview applicants to fill the current or former student who has been involved in the juvenile or criminal justice system, as well as a current and former student who's been involved in the foster care system. So those are 2 spots that remain open. And then, as you mentioned before, unfortunately, we had to withdraw one of the nominees. And so we are in the process of identifying someone who would be interested in applying and being interviewed and considered, and look forward to bringing those additional nominees before the council. I'm hoping to be able to have that before council closes things out for this session. That's the goal. It may be a bit ambitious, but that's the goal. So we can stand up the coordinating committee with a full roster of nominees.
And you're getting good buy-in from the other agencies that have to designate someone?
Yes, I think one of the things that has been a benefit of a lot of the COVID-19 response work we've done, a lot of the collaborative work that we've had to do as an office pending the formal standing up of the coordinating committee, is that I've had opportunities to work with many of our community-based leaders, but also our agencies, in identifying, where there are opportunities for partnership and across DC government, both within the DME cluster, within our public safety cluster, within other agencies and offices. There is a level of excitement and real commitment to making the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee highly effective and collaborative. And so, yes, we have been able to build those partnerships and look forward to continuing that work together.
Now, it seems to me that the work is difficult. I'm just thinking of the jail because I've visited the jail. I've seen the wing or floor where they house the students who are supposed to be getting an education. Jail is typically a short-term assignment, if I can use that word. And so I've always been a little mystified how we can provide an effective education when folks show up unannounced and they may only be there for a week or 3. I realize some longer. Can any of you speak to that? Don't everyone volunteer at once.
I can start, but I know some of our other nominees can speak directly to some of the things happening regarding education in the DC jail.
Sure. So I think, as a representative for Maya Angelou Public Charter Schools, we did assume the educational portion at DC Jail in October of 2021. Since we've been there, it is definitely challenging work, but it's work that can be done and work that we believe that we're doing well. We are in all areas of the jail, including the 2 sides of the jail, and making sure that we're giving education to students regardless of where they're housed. But it is difficult work, but we are doing very well. We've started our 2nd year on October 1st, and we've learned a lot in the last year, and we're continuing to provide the best education to the students who are at the DC jail that we're responsible for.
Didn't you have in your testimony that part of the work is to follow up with the student after they leave the jail or New Beginnings?
Right. So on the juvenile side, yes, we do follow up with the students after they leave New Beginnings. We monitor them for 90 days post-release, which includes getting them enrolled in whatever school it is that they should be enrolled in, or whichever school they choose to be enrolled in, making sure that they're attending school, and just checking in with them every 2 weeks for 90 days post-release.
Now, do you do work at New Beginnings, or is that someone else here who's done some work at New Beginnings?
So yes, I currently oversee the work, the educational program at New Beginnings Youth Services Center and at the DC jail.
And New Beginnings would be different in that I believe the youth who are sent there are there longer or for a clearer period of time than at the jail. But otherwise, is it similar?
So yes, so New Beginnings would be considered the city's long-term juvenile detention center. So it does house the students who are committed to DYRS, as well as the students who are under the age of 18 who have been charged as adults. The Youth Services Center is the short-term facility in DC, and that is a shorter period of time. Students can be there anywhere from 24 hours to potentially up to 3 months. And then DC jail, there is really no set amount of time. I think, again, we've only been there for about a year. So what we are seeing students who have been there longer than we anticipated, but it depends on the outcome of their case. It depends on whether they're, it depends on a bunch of factors that are related to the courts, not related to anything educationally.
Anyone else here want to speak to the challenges of educating youth who are detained or incarcerated?
I would speak to that as a parent. One of the things that I experienced was not the agencies not speaking to one another. So he was at YSC and then at New Beginnings, and it was hard to kind of get the records to and fro. So I kind of did a lot of the footwork myself and took the records to them. This is the last thing that happened at this school. This is what happened at the last facility. So I didn't have to kind of like wait on everyone else to kind of catch up. So I just did more of a proactive standpoint and got the information from my child who was incarcerated then at the time. So I think just being very proactive and sometimes just doing the grunt work and footwork yourself is what needs to be done, as opposed to, waiting on everyone else to catch up to what's needed.
I would also just add that I think this is part of why having a coordinating committee is so important, because of this issue with the agencies communicating with one another. And so in addition to the records transfer issue, the credits issue is a big one that a lot of students in the care of DC face. And so being able to make sure that there are appropriate policies in place where students who are sent to different facilities can come back, and those credits that they earned while they were out at those facilities actually count for the credits towards their graduation.
For some reason, what you just said reminded me that sometimes committees like this will identify problems that require a change in the law, and then they don't reach out to us. And so nothing happens. So I would urge that now you can go through channels and we may never hear, or you can just reach out to me, for example, or, well, since we're talking education, but for instance, confidentiality of juvenile records, that would probably be our judiciary committee. So you would want to reach out to them. But I would urge that if the committee is identifying some barriers in the law that we should address, that you reach out to us. In fact, after this hearing, we have another hearing on the law with regard to background checks, and where we've found that that's creating some barriers to volunteers. And so you might know something about this since you were on the Police Reform Commission. And by the way, thank you for your service there. And Commission recommended that we address that. The point being that if we hear from you, you will identify some problems, or you may. And if we hear from you, then we can address them.
And I would just say,
Yeah.
sorry.
Go on.
I was just going to say, Chairman, thank you so much for highlighting the need for that sort of through line, because one of the things that we will prioritize as a part of the SCDC Coordinating Committee through the support of the Office for Students in the Care of DC is really making sure that the work of the committee is operationalized, like it becomes real things. It's not just reports that sit in someone's inbox, or recommendations that never see the light of day. And so we really do look forward to leveraging the support that the Office of the Students in the Care of DC will be providing to the coordinating committee to make sure that their recommendations become actions, and that we communicate effectively with council and be able to build that partnership.
Thank you. I did have one question for Mr. Domenici. In your testimony, you indicated that you left Maya Angelou to start up Break Free Education, which sounds like it's just almost the same kind of organization. Why? Can you say more about that?
Yes, we do very similar work. The reason for that was when we started Maya Angelou and today, we've always looked at that program as a DC-based, really community organization. And that's what See Forever and Maya Angelou, that's our mission and that's our purpose, which is to really dig in here in the district. And although I was one of the co-founders of the organization, I didn't want to try to make the organization be something that it wasn't, which was intended to be a strong local organization working with kids and stakeholders in the district. So Break Free is a nonprofit that, just to a large extent, takes the work of Maya Angelou and tries to help other agencies and public bodies make similar changes in cities and counties and states around the country. So I'm still on the board of Maya and spend a lot of volunteer time at Maya, but we thought at the time it made sense for it to be a different organization, just to kind of keep the purpose and the mission separate.
So you personally have gotten more involved nationally while Maya Angelou is focused on the district.
Correct. It's a very clear way to say it. Yes.
So let me just ask three questions I ask at every confirmation hearing. I believe these were in the pre-hearing questions, maybe not all of them, which I also want to thank you for getting your answers to us. To each of you, are you able to meet the time requirements to serve on the commission? Ms. Hill?
Yes, I am.
And maybe you could give a sense of what those time commitments might be.
Sure. So the expectation of SCDC coordinating committee members is to participate in one full large coordinating committee meeting once per quarter, and then also to be able to engage in subgroups and lead subgroups that will meet hopefully at least twice per month, especially in the first year of the coordinating committee, to be able to strategically plan and collaboratively problem solve together. So that is broadly the time commitment. As the SCDC coordinating committee launches, I'll also be scheduling meetings in the expectation to be able to meet one-to-one with each of the appointed committee members as well as the designees to be able to prepare for the coordinating committee's kickoff and launch meeting and the voting of bylaws and the building of the coordinating committee's infrastructure ahead of it beginning its actual work. But that is generally the level of expectation. And then the additional thing that I would add is that coordinating committee members, especially as we engage on specific issues like credits or transcripts or programs, will be expected to review and provide input on data, research, best practices to be able to inform any coordinating committee priorities and recommendations. So they'll be put to work.
Right. And I hope none of that's a surprise to anyone. So, Mr.
I hope not either.
Mr. Domenici, are you able to meet the time requirements to serve on the commission?
Yes, sir.
And Dr. Hayward,
Yes, I am.
Ms. Fitzhugh,
Yes, I am.
and Ms. Blumenson.
Yes, I am.
Great. Second question. I asked this at all confirmation hearings. I'm not sure it would come up here, but do you know of any potential conflicts of interest that would affect your serving on the committee? And if there were, how would you handle it? We'll start with Dr. Hayward.
Yes, so I do think, given the work that I do for See Forever Foundation and Maya Angelou schools, that there could be potential conflicts of interest that arise. I think from a professional standpoint, I'm able to make that separation between the two. However, in the event that there is a voting situation, I would recuse myself from voting, and I would ask for an ethics consult if needed to make that determination.
Thank you. Ms. Fitzhugh?
I don't have any conflicts right now, and I don't see any that will arise. However, if that does happen, I will consult the executive director and also the committee to see if they feel that it is a conflict. And I think that I would, because of how passionate I am to be a committee member, would definitely choose the committee over any conflict involved.
Thank you. Ms. Hill?
No, I do not have any conflicts, nor do I anticipate any.
Okay, and Ms. Blumenson?
I think there can be situations where we potentially have conflicts due to lawsuits, but I don't believe that we currently, the cases that we have are really in conflict with my role in the committee. And I've participated in a lot of working groups in the past, and there have not been conflicts. But were there any conflicts to come up, I would ask for an ethics consult, talk with Director Hill, and I think we'd be able to address anything. And of course, I can recuse myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing is if you think there might be a conflict, you disclose it, you get advice, and then if the advice is that you recuse yourself, you recuse yourself.
Absolutely.
Mr. Domenici?
Similar to other people, I think generally no. I'm no longer employed by See Forever Maya Angelou, and Break Free is not in the business of pursuing contractual work with the District of Columbia related to your prior question. Having said that, as a board member of Maya Angelou and See Forever, if situations arose, I would do just like others have said, would seek counsel and follow that counsel and recuse myself if it made sense.
Thank you. The third question is, do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the district, federal, or other state and local governments? And if you have a payment plan that works. Let me see, Ms. Hill?
No, I do not.
Ms. Blumenson?
I have one parking ticket that I have contested. And I'm
Yeah, I saw
awaiting
that.
a decision.
Made me realize I have a parking ticket too, but we won't talk about that. Ms. Fitzhugh?
I too found out that I had some outstanding parking tickets and some from 2014 that I had no idea about. But I have since talked to I think it's called the CCU unit, and I did come up with a payment plan to be settled with them.
Okay. And Dr. Hayward?
I don't have any to the District of Columbia. I do have a ticket in the state of Maryland that I'm paying.
All right, and I'm also asking about taxes and any other debt, so I'm assuming,
Correct.
and then Mr. Domenici.
No, sir.
I put that in my pre-hearing questions, and I always ask it at hearings. Years and years ago, the council was embarrassed with somebody who was, we confirmed, and it turned out they had some huge debt, and it was just embarrassing, so I ask it up front. And thank you for that. Let me check with staff, see if I have any other questions. Again, I want to thank each of you for your willingness to serve. And thank you as well for your advocacy in this space. It's important work and difficult work. So this could be exciting. The committee actually sort of coordinating the different agencies and just getting a better approach toward dealing with students in the care of DC. So thank you again. I'm going to close out this hearing. We have a second hearing, and there are folks who are on the same link, I believe. And probably about 5 minutes after this hearing, I'll start that hearing. As I indicated at the beginning, this has been a hearing on mayor's nominations to individuals to serve on the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. The record in this matter will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, November 14th, 2022. The time is 12:20 p.m. and this hearing is